Hey, what's up, my people? John Middlekauff, new YouTube channel. What I need you to do, subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, share with your friends. Appreciate everyone that has. It's the podcast, 3 and Out. You can listen wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple, Spotify. We got you covered. Also, thevolume.com. We got merch right here. FlexFit hat. Go to thevolume.com. Get yourself a 3 and Out hat. Okay, a lot has happened in the about 48 hours since I last did a football podcast. We have the franchise tag list is now official. Today, about an hour before I recorded this, feels like the Buffalo Bills cut half their team. I want to dive into some thoughts just on cuts in general. The running backs, who, if you remember last year, created like a committee where they just called themselves and went on a Zoom together and just complained. And not only does it feel like nothing happened, I think they're in for an eye-opening experience here on the open market. We do draft daily on a daily basis leading up to the draft. Something really jumped out to me when it comes to the offensive linemen. And then we'll just rattle off a couple stories that are flying around. Manning talking to Belichick about Omaha, and Florio. I tweeted or wrote an article on something in regards to Cousins that I think everyone was hearing at the combine. So we'll just kind of dive in around the league. Just a great time. This 7-10 day stretch is it's fun. It really is. So before we dive into some football, you know what I got to do. I got to tell you about my friends, my loyal partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. You know where I'm going on Sunday? Or actually Saturday, this weekend? I'm going to a Dodger game, a little spring training. I don't know if you heard, they signed this guy for about $700 million named Shohei Ohtani. They also signed his homie from Japan. I don't want to butcher his name, but he's supposed to be pretty sweet too. I don't know if he's pitching on Saturday, but the way I did it is I use Gametime. And I highly recommend you guys do it too. So if you want to go to a spring training game, if you're in Florida, if you're in Arizona, if you want to go to one of these basketball games, NBA or college, March Madness is right around the corner. It's March right now. Usually March Madness doesn't get going until the end of the month, but any event, concert, comedy show, you name it, just download the Gametime app, promo code John, John, promo code John, save $20. I've been using these guys for well over a year now and swear by them. Download the Gametime app, promo code John, get $20 off your first pair of tickets. The franchise tag. I saw Pro Football Talk wrote an article that the franchise tag sucks, essentially. And I couldn't disagree anymore. Now, does it suck for a player? Yeah. You're getting pretty rich when you could get really rich. Does it suck for the team? Yeah, it's not ideal. You don't want to have to franchise tag a guy because if you're franchising him, you want him on your team and you're interested in extending, meaning if you can get an extension done, it's easier on your cap. Because if the franchise tag is $20, $25 million, that entire number hits the salary cap. For example, the 49ers last year had a very high-priced team. A lot of guys making a lot of money. Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. These guys are on huge contracts. Their highest cap hit last season was $12 million, Trent Williams. All contract extensions are all about manipulating the salary cap. And the franchise tag is actually beneficial for us, the fan. Because one thing that the NFL has that these other sports simply do not have, if you want to keep your star player, it's very rare that a quarterback ever makes it this far. It's honestly unheard of for a superstar quarterback to get on the franchise tag. That I guess it happened with Lamar Jackson, but that became complicated, right? His negotiation, ultimately it got done. But you see the Dak Prescotts and the Kirk Cousins, like those type guys. You don't see Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. Those guys just aren't going to get franchise tagged. Right? If Caleb Williams or any of these guys in this draft hit and become a star, like the franchise tag's not. If you're franchising tagging a quarterback, you have some questions. And listen, basketball, I was watching the Suns Nuggets game last night. And I was just thinking, like, it looks weird seeing Kevin Durant in a Suns uniform. He's been on like 5 different teams in 4 years. Like, that's not great for a league when your star players are bouncing around constantly. Certain baseball teams, if you have Aaron Judge or a Bryce Harper, like, you kind of know that once his contract is up and he hits free agency, he gone. And that sucks. Like, I try to hammer this home all the time. This business exists because of you guys, myself included. I watch all this shit without us watching, and it makes it more watchable when you know the star players are never leaving unless the team wants them to leave. And you see the franchise tag list from the dude in Baltimore who my buddy that was on the staff says he's basically John Randall, an absolute stud. Carolina, Burns, that situation's a little weird. I think if they could redo it, they would have traded him to the Bears and kept DJ Moore. Chicago, no-brainer. The kid from Fresno, Jalen Johnson. He's a really good player, and their defense was good. Cincinnati, Tee Higgins. Listen, here's a good example of the franchise tag. Tee Higgins is going to get well over $20 million if he plays out the franchise tag. The Bengals do not want to lose Tee Higgins. They love Tee Higgins. They said last year, I remember when the GM was at the podium at the Combine, you guys plan on trading Tee Higgins? Or like a lot of people are sniffing around Tee Higgins. And he basically said, find your own wide receiver. But this is a business. And they have a $50 million quarterback and a wide receiver who's better than him. So it complicates the situation. The Bengals don't want to lose him. The Bengals fans don't want to lose him. And ultimately, they would love to get a contract figured out. But if the number's $28 million, like, can you pay him $28 million? Then next year, Jamar Chase, $35 million? It is a legit conversation. This is a business. This is a business. And how often a lot of the media will always be very pro-player, which I am too. Without the players, this sport doesn't exist. But, like, how many of these guys are ultimately going to get screwed? How often do guys play on the franchise tag or get tagged and ultimately that are legit high-end guys don't end up making a ton of money? It's very, very few and far between. The Colts, Pittman. When I first saw that, I was like, he's a franchise tag guy? And I texted a pro scout in the league, and he said, well, there are a lot of variables here. 1, best year of his career. 2, the Colts have missed on some picks, and this is very like, hey, look at what I'm doing, Jim Irsay. And 3, like when you factor in the receiver market, it's technically a cheap deal for a 1-year contract, and it's also to prove, like, can you keep doing this? He's also a big body for a quarterback who's not that accurate. That was the one that was like, is this guy really worth the franchise tag? But you definitely don't want to lose him, and he's probably not going to sign a contract with you for a quote-unquote cheap deal. The Jags tag the Josh Allen, the pass rusher, really good player coming off a big year. Tampa, Winfield Jr., baller. And KC basically tagging Snead to trade him. He's going to get traded. So that's a good example. Like, he's currently tagged. He is going to get an astronomical amount of money when he is traded to whoever. The Lions, you pick the team that ends up pulling the trigger on him, is going to give him $60, $70 million in a contract extension. Like, all these guys are going to get a ton of money, whether it's right now, which they're still really rich. They're just going to be really, really, really rich when they sign the actual contract. But this notion that everyone's getting screwed, these numbers are like $20, $25 million truly guaranteed. Like, how many guys in the league are making that much money? And beside Mbuke, I'm not saying his name right, the defense number 92 with the Ravens, how many of these guys, like Jalen Johnson, really good scheme fit. He's not for everybody. He would make a lot of money. He's going to make a lot of money. But some of these guys, like Michael Pittman, like, our team's just lined up to give him $70, $80 million. Now, you could argue, let the free market happen. And listen, I'm a capitalist, so I understand from their standpoint. But from the league's health standpoint, this benefits the league greatly from a business standpoint to us, which, let's face it, kind of matters. Get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 back in a bonus bet. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN. New customers can get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code JOHN. The crown is yours. The cuts today. This time of year, I think you see a lot of guys being waived, cut, relieved of their duties on the team, basically clear out your locker, you're not coming back. And there are two separate reasons, and they're dramatically different. The Buffalo Bills today, it felt like cut half their defense. The two safeties, the corner. Now, granted, he's been hurt a couple times, but a lot of guys. They like all these players. Like in a perfect world, they would not cut any of these guys. They would bring them back. But they're $40 million over the cap. They have no choice. They have to clean up their books. That was why this move happened. The Eagles cut Maddox, the slot corner, who's been injured, but they like a lot and is a really good player. But it's just strictly business. Like, we don't have a choice. We're not cutting like A.J. Brown. So we're cutting you to try to clear up the books. And the Bills found themselves in this position because just a couple years ago, like, they can't cut Von Miller. Based on their salary cap and the dead cap money and the way they structured his deal, like, they're kind of stuck with him. And I think, listen, we all make bad decisions in life. Some just cost you more than others, right? A lot of people, they get their first job, they like go lease a Mercedes. Probably not a great idea, right? When you have a highly paid quarterback and you're going to, fire your lone big bullet and you go after Von Miller and you give him $50+ million in guarantees, he's an older player. And I love Von Miller. He made me, back when I didn't have that much money, like one of the biggest bets I've ever had at the time. I wanted like $2,500 because I went all in on the Denver Broncos to win that Super Bowl. He was Super Bowl MVP. I've seen him play live 3 or 4 times in his prime. He's one of the greatest talents I've ever seen. But at this point in time, like, should you be in the business of paying older guys third contracts, and then he gets injured? And clearly he's never been the same. They would like a redo on that one, but you don't get mulligans when you sign big contracts. So that is a result of a poor business decision. And then there are cuts like Jamal Adams, Russell Wilson, where you can't get the guy out of the building fast enough. Now, I'm not trying to lump Russell and Jamal. Russell has, you can call him whatever you want, a politician, corny, kind of weird, but he's not like a malicious individual. Clearly, Jamal pissed a lot of people off, and they do not like him in Seattle at all. I mean, last year was a great example. When the dude made fun of him on Twitter for getting smoked in a game in one-on-one coverage in the corner of the end zone, which Jamal Adams has been bad cover guy for a long time now. And he goes after the guy's wife. And listen, I've always been a big believer of no group struggles to give criticism and then take it worse than people in the space of criticizing professional athletes or professional coaches. So, like, listen, if you're going to make fun of him, he can make fun of you back. But, like, you're kind of a D-bag if you go after the guy's wife, which he like basically called her ugly. I got news for you. Like, she wasn't that bad. Like, give me a break. It was, and even Pete Carroll had to apologize for it. It was an embarrassment. And one of the first moves from McDonald with Schneider is to get this guy out of our building. And I think sometimes, like, this guy's never playing in the league again. Remember that was like Russell Westbrook a couple years ago? Like, this guy's going to head to China. Like, no, he's not. I don't know who's signing this guy. Seriously. He's a complete headache. What's his role? He's basically a linebacker, can't cover anybody. Listen, if I was a GM, this guy could cost $5. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Obviously, Russell falls under a different category. But in terms of the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton, like, let's be real. Like, Sean Payton couldn't stand him as a player. And some of those cuts are simply like, we got to get rid of this guy. So you see the cuts that are strictly business. It's part of professional sports. It just happens. And then there are the cuts of like, we don't like this person. We don't like him as a player. We don't like the guy. We want him gone. And and I would imagine more names over the next 3 or 4 days will fall under that category, especially with new staffs. And sometimes new staffs, they also cut guys because, listen, you run new schemes. The guy that used to fit no longer fits, right? If the Chicago Bears had blown up their operation and hired a new coach, there's a chance Jalen Johnson might not have fit the new defensive coordinator if they had gone that route. So maybe they would have tagged and traded him. Well, the Bears obviously aren't going to tag and trade this guy. They want to keep him. And then if you're the Carolina Panthers, for example, like with Brian Burns, you go, God, we don't have any picks. Where are we going? Couldn't you use him to kind of I don't know, restock the cupboards a little bit. Like you don't obviously your first round picks in Chicago. So this is a time when a lot of business is being discussed internally in the front office and around the league. The running backs. I thought last year was, I mean, typical social media, things overblown, things that we view as a big deal that are simply not a big deal when they all hopped on a Zoom. And I think you got to be able to separate. Like, if I was in their shoes, I'd be mad too. We all are a product of our own feelings, our own emotions, our own situations. So I get those guys thinking they're, quote unquote, getting screwed, even they were making 11 and $12 million, which obviously is a lot of money. But when they see random wide receivers getting 18, $20 million, they think they're getting the short end of the stick. Here's the problem: Saquon Barkley not tagged, Josh Jacobs not tagged. Though I do think because the owner really, really likes Josh Jacobs, and I think Josh Jacobs is a much better player than Saquon Barkley, I still think he ends up with the Raiders. But anytime that you quote unquote hit free agency, like you hit the open market, you're never guaranteed to come back. That's like the old adage in NFL front offices. If you're not going to tag him or get an extension done by the time free agency hits, you have to be prepared to lose the player. There are a lot of stories, and listen, I'm not some reporter, but it's pretty clear Saquon Barkley was offered an extension last year for less money than he valued himself, but definitely more money than he's going to get. There were rumors at the combine, like guys like him are going to get $5, $6, $7 million on a 1-year deal. Part of life is obviously you got to strike when the iron's hot. And if you're a defensive lineman, an offensive tackle, like last year, McGlinchey, he was licking his lips to hit free agency because of the lack of tackles. Even if he's average as the day is long, he was going to get a lot of money, and he did. He plays a premium position. He had been a starter on a good team, and he took advantage of the Denver Broncos. But if the Denver Broncos hadn't have paid him, someone else would have paid him. Maybe not that much, but he was going to make a lot of money. When you're a running back, and it's been pretty consistent in recent years, like the market is not on your side, and someone offers you a pretty good deal relative to your position, a really good deal. If you're trying to sell your house right now, and let's say the market, they cut rates and the market really starts heating up again, and your neighbor who has a very similar home to you sells his house for $1 million. Well, if you think you're going to get $2.5 million for your home, you're a fucking moron. You're wasting your time. Now, maybe you could get 125. Maybe you could be aggressive that way and like kind of strong arm some people trying to buy your house. Slow play them off each other, see what happens. And maybe you get a little bit more than him, but you're not getting double. You're not getting 150% more than him. Like, you got to be realistic. And I think sometimes, and it's hard, like we're all emotional about our own situations, that clearly he got really emotional about his situation and it cost him. And we'll see coming up what the money is, but I would imagine the money's not going to be great. And I'm not talking about the first time, whether he signs somewhere, the contract that is reported. Now, if you tell me he goes back to the New York Giants, that to me is going to be where the most money is. But I also think once they sign Daniel Jones, makes it a little more complicated. Like they have already gotten to a contract that they regret. And not that he's a better player than Daniel Jones, clearly, but financially, like it's very, very risky to do these running back contracts. It's not just random. They're not just suppressed because they're just suppressing them to try to drive down the price of these guys. They just don't think they're worth it. They think it's very, very easy to find replacements all over the draft. It's kind of true. Look at last year. Nick Chubb, who's clearly one of the best running backs in the NFL. Not even debatable. You could argue before his injury, he's the second best running back in the league behind Christian McCaffrey. He has a devastating injury. Browns keep rolling. I mean, they didn't skip a beat. Made the playoffs pretty easily with Joe Flacco. So I just think these running backs, and this is just good advice for anybody. Obviously, they're dealing with a lot more money than 99.9% of people. But sometimes when you're discussing money, whether it's selling something, whether it's negotiating your own contract, Colin said this for a long time about removing the emotion. The faster you can do that and kind of see the big picture and kind of understand the landscape of anything you're dealing with helps you make good decisions financially. Because making poor decisions financially, especially when, in a situation like this, like your career's not that long. You've already been in the league 6 or 7 years. You're not going to play 15. Striking while the iron's hot, like this is a pretty good deal. Ask Le'Veon Bell how that situation went. It was a disaster. Cost himself millions of dollars. Millions. Literally $14 million that he never got back. And and obviously then his career fell off a cliff. Now, that's not these guys. They kept playing. And it's not like I'm not trying to talk shit because I respect these players. Like, I think it's very, very difficult to do what they do. But it's not real. You can't even argue that if the Giants drafted a guy in the third round, he easily could be a top, I don't know, 8, 9 running back this year. Very easily. It literally happens every single year. So that's the pushback of like, why offer anything? eBay Motors is here for the ride. You know, the first car I ever got, I was 16 years old, and my grandpa gave me a ride. And like any young lad who got a car that, let's face it, would not have been my first choice, I had to touch it up a little bit. And we tinted out the windows. We added a big subwoofer to the back, and you could hear me from miles away coming home. My parents sure loved me for that one. So did my neighbors. But I think the key to any young person getting a car is to personalize a little bit, because you're probably not going to get your dream car. And as you get older, you know, you kind of become a car person or you don't. But you definitely have preferences, right? Some of us like bigger cars. I know I do. I've only had big cars, SUVs. And there are certain non-negotiables. I like 3 rows of seats. Now, ideally, I don't have kids right now, so I take out that third row of seat, and I like a big, you know, I like a lot of trunk room. Some people, you know, don't like SUVs, like smaller cars. I've never been that big since my high school car of tinting the windows. I don't care if you see me or not, but I know some people, like, the first thing they do is tint the windows. It's crazy. The older you get, you know, I had to have the subwoofers. The subwoofer, I couldn't listen to music for 5 minutes with the subwoofer like I did when I was younger. But there is something very, very special about that first car. I don't care how many cars you get since, how much money you make to get sweeter cars. You never quite forget that first ride and some of the memorable moments that you had in it in your high school years. So with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. I wanted to do something quick on Draft Daily because I saw this graphic today of all the offensive linemen who ran in at the combine. And the one thing is, like, you know, all these quarterbacks and wide receivers, some of these guys, too cool for school is not even fair. It's like if you're Marvin Harrison or Caleb Williams, you don't have to do any of this crap. But they just kind of go stand around. Offensive linemen, even if you're going to go in like the top 5, you just do everything. It's just what you do. Someone asked me the other day, like on the mailbag, why they're the most relatable. There's a humility to the group that is really unlike any other position. And 10 guys ran basically a 5 flat or better in the 40-yard dash. Joe Alt, who is projected to be the number 1 offensive lineman off the board, a top 10 pick, ran basically a 5.0 40, and he's 6'8", 320 pounds. And he got up on his 40 the fastest of the group. He didn't run the fastest 40, but his peak speed was almost 15 miles an hour. Think about, like, sometimes in the NFL when a Tyreek Hill or those guys are running over 20 miles an hour. So a guy that big running that fast. And I was listening to, I forget who it was, but a draft guy saying this is one of the fastest groups of offensive linemen. DJ might even mention this. The athleticism of these individuals. Now, here's the problem. Now, he went to Notre Dame, so they will run more of a physical style offense. I hear this all the time in the NBA. The players have never been more talented. Well, true, but the basketball's never been worse. And the teams as a whole have never been worse in the league. Not debatable. Guys are moving nonstop. There are 2 or 3 teams who are excellent. The Denver Nuggets, the Boston Celtics, that could play in any era. Most of these teams are a mismatch of just guys from like last year or this year. There's no continuity on the team. Baseball, it matters less. Like I can throw together a team in 1 year and you can win 100 games. Basketball, cohesion matters a lot like football. Now, the problem is like the athletes at the offensive line position are obviously currently awesome. The problem is the way you play in college football and the spread offenses. Unlike quarterback, even if your offense is nothing like the offense that you're going to play in the pros, it's relatively easy to adapt. Like for the most part, you should be able to figure out if you've been in shotgun your entire career, how to take the center quarterback exchange pretty seamlessly. Jared Goff's a good example. Only shotgun in college, like transition pretty easily. Takes maybe 6 months or whatever, but you can become pretty comfortable at it. And throws are throws, like the go route, and you're going to end up running a lot of shotgun in the pros anyway. But pro football, especially in the run game and the physicality of the defensive linemen that you play, it is a huge, huge jump. So there's clearly physically a lot of guys that have a lot to work with. And I bet offensive linemen or offensive line coaches all over the league are very, very intrigued. But the transition is not easy. It's not. Now, it's easier, and this is why when I asked Jason Light about the Shanahan offense, and he simply said, like every guy says, it's easier on the quarterback. It's also easier on the offensive line because in the run game, I don't need you to be Larry Allen and pick up, Jalen Carter or Fletcher Cox or Aaron Donald and drive him 4 or 5 yards back. It's positional blocking. It's using your athleticism. Now, ultimately, a game comes down to a 3rd and 8. That guy's going to be at a disadvantage. But if you have a talented group of skill guys and a good offensive coordinator, I can circumvent a lot of those situations because of the way the offense is called. So I think a lot of these teams that run that offense, that need offensive linemen, are clearly going to be in to draft these offensive linemen in the first couple rounds because the athleticism, the speed matters in a zone blocking scheme. How fast your feet are, how fast you can go laterally. In a power scheme, athleticism is less important. Obviously, you would like a complete player, right? You would love Jason Kelsey or Trent Williams or whoever the best players are at their individual. Zach Martin. The best can play in any scheme. A lot of guys can't. A lot of guys would struggle in the opposite of the scheme they're playing in. If they are a power guy and they're playing in more of a pro style gap, not having to move laterally as much, I put them in the Shanahan scheme and they're asked to do that, it's a problem. And vice versa. Those guys who aren't as powerful, I put them in more of a power run scheme, they're going to be at a disadvantage. So I think the offensive linemen, the numbers on the 40, it's obviously the 40, how often are they running the 40? It's more the 10 and the 20. But the 40-yard dashes with offensive linemen historically have translated to success because it's just a major display of athleticism for a guy that weighs anywhere from 310 to 330 pounds. Okay, let's fly around a couple stories. Pro Football Talk, which is Mike Florio, basically has been reporting for a while, and it's pretty well out there now. The Atlanta Falcons are circling the wagons on Kirk Cousins, and they feel like they are a quarterback away from being really good. And that honestly might be true because you watch them last year, they were pretty damn competitive with Desmond Ridder, who to me, I don't even think he's a top 50 quarterback in the NFL. Think about that. They were competitive with a guy who's probably not a top 50 quarterback in the NFL. They have a solid defense and clearly have a lot of skilled guys on offense. And if you're Cousins, let's face it, last year around this time, it didn't even feel like Minnesota was all in on him. It felt like they were actively potentially trying to trade him last year. So you don't quite forget that. Even if you're very comfortable with the area, you like where your kids go to school, you like where you live, you can always come back there, right? I think Atlanta's going to offer him a lot of money. And it's been well talked about, the connection. Because part of it, I would go, new coach, he doesn't know these guys. That ain't the case. He knows the group, knows the offense, knows the head coach, been around these guys, knows them personally, and they're going to be willing to pay. I think a number that Minnesota simply won't. And I don't necessarily blame Minnesota, but you get yourself in one of these positions, right? It's like, okay, let Cousins go. What are you going to do? Like, what's your plan? And I'm sure you have some plans, but when you're not drafting super high, you don't control the draft. So you need the area of luck on your side. It's like, okay, trade up to get a quarterback. Well, listen, I like drafting a quarterback high as much as the next guy, but we all know the hit rate on those guys just isn't very high. So they find themselves in a precarious situation. And maybe they're just, Cousins' camp is just driving the price up, which is smart business. And they've proven to be very, very lucrative businessmen because they've made I think, who said this? I mean, it's documented. I think he's already a top 10 paid player in the history of the league. Now, those numbers are going to dramatically change over the next 10 years, but Cousins made a lot of money. And I would imagine he's got $100 million more coming to him in the next 10 days. Peyton Manning. I've said forever that I think Belichick, I'm honestly offended by everyone shitting on Bill. Like, guys, we all watched him coach. He was pretty damn good. Yeah, he was not good without a quarterback. Most coaches are not. Most coaches are not Andy Reid, and they can deal with like any type quarterback. You give most quarterback or coaches a shitty quarterback. Look at Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. Take away Matt Stafford and Purdy from them. How'd it go? So saw him lose a lot of games. I saw Kyle get his ass kicked with Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. I saw last year Sean McVay have no chance throughout the season. It took him the one game with Baker Mayfield on Thursday night to have a shot, and he had to claim him on Monday. So it's very, very difficult. But perception becomes reality, and there's usually some truth to perception. Bill's probably not the easiest guy to deal with, his personality, and he's not for everybody. But he's clearly better than most of these guys. Now, there are variables. He's old. How much power does he want? The only way to change perception, especially in a public job, is usually to use the media to your advantage. And to me, Belichick, I thought he should do everything humanly possible to get on Thursday Night Football. It doesn't feel like that's going to happen. Well, now Peyton Manning and Omaha's going after him. Why not make Bill a weekly guest? Because here's the thing with Thursday and Monday Night Football, 30 of the 32 owners are watching that broadcast. Think about that. The guys who sign the checks, the guys who make the ultimate decisions, yay or nay, are watching that game. No different than me or you. So if you're Bill, like, to me, the Omaha thing, obviously you could do, I'm sure you have some ideas, make fun stuff with Peyton. I think if you can get consistently on that Peyton Manning broadcast, if you're Belichick, you should try to do that. Even if it's just for a quarter. Like the second quarter of every game, Monday Night Football that they're on, he's on with them. He should be all over that. Almost like a guest hit on a radio show. Like Rodgers. Every Tuesday, he's on with McAfee. Every second quarter, Belichick's on. And I've said this for a while. Like, once they hired Joe and Troy, I don't watch Peyton and Eli anymore. Not that I love those guys. I'd hang out with those guys, and that's how I feel like on that show. But once they got a real broadcast crew, I want to watch the game. But if you told me that Bill, every second quarter for 15 minutes is on with those guys, I'm in. I change the channel. So if I'm Peyton, that's one of my pitches. Like, we want you involved. It's not all 17 games or whatever. But whatever games we're calling, whatever games we're on, we want you to be a part of it. And obviously, we'll pay you for it. And last but not least, these cuts, I don't think they can become official till the league year starts. And obviously, there are mechanisms that, you can push it back till June 1 to spread out the money. There are a lot of moving parts. But the Broncos, because it's not official for several days, not only did they cut Russell Wilson or told him, like, you're not coming back, they told him, like, hey, man, if you want to fly to other facilities, you can just act like you're truly a free agent right now, even though technically you're not. So you want to go to Pittsburgh? Go to them. You want to Atlanta, New England, wherever. Go meet with the coaches. And I've heard a lot of people say this that cover the Broncos really closely. I found the Broncos a tough watch. The last 2 years ago, it was an embarrassment. Even this year, kind of boring. But I've heard Solaris say this. I heard Brock Heward say this. He just really struggles in the, which is not an ideal way to define a quarterback, in the context of the offense. Like after one read, he kind of just scrambles around and it throws off the timing of everything else. So there is a chance that some of these coaches are just not going to be that into him. But the one thing he's really got going for him, if he's willing to play, and I said this a couple days ago, the veteran minimum is based on your service time. And someone wrote that it's his numbers like a little over $1.2 million. That's the minimum amount you can pay him. If I get Russell Wilson for $1.2 million, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's why a lot of people have kind of put him there. It makes a lot of sense. Now, does that just guarantee that they're going to be a lot better than they've been? No. But would I rather have Russell Wilson than Kenny Pickett? Of course I would. And maybe Pittsburgh won't decide that. If they don't, I think they're setting themselves up for failure. And they're an organization that, let's face it, based on their history, has not been having success. Right? Like going 9-8 for them and getting your ass kicked in the first round is not some accomplishment. That's a big deal for a lot of random teams. That's not the case with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you're Pittsburgh, what if you get him? Maybe it jolts you to 11, 12 wins, even if he's just this version of what he's been moving forward. It's still better than what you have.